You ever hear something so insane, so humiliating, that your brain just stalls? Like, your heart keeps pumping, your lungs are breathing, but everything else in you just shuts down? That's what happened to me at 7:42 p.m. on a random Tuesday when my wife, Lauren, walked into the kitchen in a silk robe, poured herself a glass of wine, and dropped the bomb like she was asking for the weather forecast. "Darling, I'm opening up our marriage," she said, swirling her wine like she was a guest on some late-night talk show. "And tonight, I'm spending it with your friend. With Jake." I didn't answer. I didn't move. I just stood there, spatula in one hand, chicken sizzling in the pan behind me, and I swear I could hear my heartbeat louder than the damn stove. My mouth opened, but my throat was dry. I stared at her like I'd misheard. Like somehow the words had rearranged themselves into that sentence just to mess with me. Jake, my best friend since college. The guy who stood next to me at our wedding in Mexico, toasted to our forever love, and cried drunk tears during our first dance like a goddamn rom-com sidekick. "Jake, you're kidding," I finally said. My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded far away, like I was watching this whole moment from behind glass. "You're joking." Lauren smiled. Not nervously, not apologetically, like she was proud, like she'd just won a F******ing award for boldest performance in betrayal. "No, baby. I've thought about this for months. I'm tired of pretending we're happy. I need more. We need more." "More?" I laughed, but it came out like a choke. "So more means sneaking around behind my back with my best friend?" "It's not sneaking," she said, suddenly annoyed. "I'm telling you now, aren't I? Jake's already on his way." And just like that, I snapped back to reality. "What do you mean he's on his way?" I asked, stepping forward. "To my house." "Our house," she corrected, still sipping that wine like she was on vacation. "Don't get dramatic, Nate. You've always been so sensitive." That's when I realized she wasn't just telling me. She was preparing me. She'd set this up like a dinner reservation. She was dressed. The wine was open. Her perfume was thick in the air. She'd planned it all out. "You're insane," I said quietly. "You've lost your goddamn mind." She rolled her eyes and turned her back to me, heading upstairs with that slow, taunting sway in her hips, the kind I used to admire before it belonged to a woman I didn't recognize. I should have run after her. Should have screamed. Should have thrown the wine glass across the wall. But I didn't. I just stood there in my own kitchen, with my own food burning on the stove, in my own damn house, waiting for Jake, my best friend, to come and take my wife upstairs like it was his home. And you know what the craziest part is? A small part of me waited, just to see if it was real, just to make sure I wasn't in some kind of twisted nightmare. That part died when I heard his car pull into the driveway, his stupid Mustang engine rumbling like thunder. He honked once, casual, confident. I walked out onto the porch, and there he was, Jake, in a tight black tee, hair slicked, cologne cloud following him like arrogance made visible. "Hey, Nate," he said like we were meeting for poker night. I didn't respond. He gave me that awkward half shrug, then reached past me to knock on the front door like he was some goddamn pizza delivery guy bringing my wife a freaking treat. Lauren opened it wearing lingerie. Real lingerie. The kind I hadn't seen her wear since year 2 of our marriage. She didn't even glance at me as she took his hand and pulled him inside like he belonged there. The door shut. I stood on the porch, alone, frozen, and that's when it hit me like a gut punch I wasn't ready for. This wasn't just betrayal. This was humiliation. I sat in my truck outside the house for an hour. Maybe 2. I didn't turn the engine on. Just stared through the windshield like some kind of ghost, watching shadows flicker behind the curtains. Every time a light switched off, my stomach twisted tighter. Every time I thought I heard a laugh or the floor creak upstairs, I felt something in me snap a little more. I kept hoping it would be over. That she'd come out, embarrassed, crying, telling me it was all some stupid test or sick joke. That she needed me to fight for her. That this was some twisted game of prove your love. But the hours dragged by, and no one came outside. The only sound was the low hum of betrayal settling into my bones. At 1:17 a.m., I finally went back inside. The smell hit me first. That smell. Her perfume, mixed with something else. Something raw. A scent that didn't belong to me anymore. I walked through the house in silence. The wine glass was still on the counter. Her robe was tossed carelessly over a chair. A man's shoes sat near the stairs, Jake's size 11s. I remember because I helped him pick them out before his job interview. I walked past them. Slow. Heavy. My feet felt like they were trying to drag me down, like even my body couldn't handle this weight anymore. Our bedroom door was shut. I didn't touch it. Instead, I turned down the hallway and walked into the guest room. Slept, if you could call it that, on the edge of a mattress that smelled like dust and old linen. My fists clenched the blanket, my eyes staring up at the ceiling, unblinking. Images kept flashing through my head. Her fingers in his hair, his hands on her waist, her voice saying his name the way she used to say mine. I must have drifted off eventually, because I woke up to the sound of the shower running. Her voice humming behind the wall, light and happy like she'd just come back from yoga class. I got up slowly, rubbed the sleep, or whatever the hell it was, out of my eyes, and walked into the kitchen. She was already there, fresh towel wrapped around her head, barefoot, making pancakes, like nothing happened, like the night before hadn't set my entire world on fire. "Morning," she said with a smile, flipping a pancake and not even looking at me. I didn't answer. She glanced over her shoulder. "Don't be weird, Nate. This is healthy. Honest. Most couples don't survive because they bottle everything up. I'm being real with you." "Real?" I laughed, my voice hoarse. "You brought my best friend into our bed and you're calling it real?" She rolled her eyes. "God, you're being dramatic. We didn't do anything bad. It's just intimacy. You think I didn't know about the girl from your gym?" That stopped me cold. "What the hell are you talking about?" I asked. She shrugged. "You smiled at her too long. That's emotional cheating, Nate." I stepped back like I'd been slapped. "You destroyed everything we had because I smiled at someone?" Lauren turned off the stove, plate in hand. "I evolved, Nate. I stopped living in denial. You should thank me for being honest. And Jake understands me in ways you never could. He listens. He appreciates me." I stared at her. At this version of her. This woman who wasn't the person I married. This stranger who justified betrayal with self-help buzzwords and fake emotional growth. "I was loyal to you," I said quietly. "Even when things got hard. I stayed. I tried." She walked past me and dropped the plate in front of me like she was doing me a favor. "I'm not the villain here," she said. "You just couldn't keep up." I looked down at the pancakes, then up at her. "I'm not eating this," I said, pushing the plate away. "And you're not staying here." She blinked. "Excuse me. You and Jake? You made your choice. Pack your things. You're being irrational." "No," I said, voice steady. "I'm finally thinking clearly." She scoffed, storming past me. And I stood there again, alone in the kitchen. Only this time, something had shifted. Something inside me had clicked into place. I wasn't just humiliated anymore. I was done. She slammed the bedroom door so hard the walls shuddered. I heard drawers yanked open, hangers scraping metal rods, the thud of shoes being tossed into a bag. She was making it a show, loud, dramatic, like she wanted me to beg her to stay. I didn't move. I sat at the kitchen table, elbows on the surface, fingers laced in front of my mouth. My eyes fixed on the empty hallway, listening to the chaos upstairs like I was watching a tornado rip through a house that wasn't mine anymore. When she finally came down, she was wearing leggings, a hoodie that wasn't hers, probably Jake's, and sunglasses, even though it was still early morning. No makeup, hair pulled into a lazy bun. She didn't look like the woman I married. She looked like a stranger trying to walk out of a mess she created without looking back. "Where are you going?" I asked, my voice flat. "To Jake's," she muttered, dragging her suitcase behind her. "Don't worry, we won't stay long. Just a few days until things cool down." Things. Cool down. She spoke like this was an argument over chores. Like I'd forgotten to take out the trash, and now we just needed a little space. "You think you can just come back after this?" I asked. She paused at the door, hand on the knob, and turned her head just enough for me to see her smirk. "You'll change your mind," she said. "You always do." That sentence, it didn't hit like a punch. It landed like poison. Slow. Creeping. Deep. Because she was right. I had let things slide. Again and again. Little lies. Disrespect. The silent treatment. Her constant belittling disguised as jokes. I had swallowed it all. For the marriage. For the memories. For the woman I thought still existed inside her. But that woman was gone. Lauren walked out the door without saying goodbye. Without a glance back. I didn't go after her. Instead, I grabbed a trash bag and started clearing out everything that reminded me of her. Photos. Candles. That stupid inspirational sign she hung above the bed. Love is patient. Love is kind. What a joke. I threw it all in the bag. By noon, I'd filled 4 of them. The house felt different already. Not better. Not yet. Just lighter. Like the first breath after holding it too long. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Jake. Hey man, I know this is weird, but I hope we can talk. Lauren and I never meant to hurt you. Things just happened. Let me know when you're ready. My vision went red. I stared at the screen like it had slapped me. He never meant to hurt me? Things just happened? You don't accidentally sleep with your best friend's wife. That's not something that just happens. That's planned. That's deliberate. That's betrayal with eye contact. I didn't respond. Instead, I scrolled through my photos. Found the one of us 3, me, Jake, and Lauren, laughing at our wedding rehearsal dinner. Jake had his arm around me. She had hers around Jake. I remembered thinking how lucky I was to have the 2 people I trusted most in the world beside me. I deleted it. That night, I drank. Not heavily. Just enough to feel the edges soften. I sat on the couch, watching a movie I didn't care about, half listening, half drifting. The clock ticked loud in the silence. Around midnight, headlights flashed across the window. I stood up, but it wasn't her car. It was her sister's. Rachel. She knocked once and let herself in like she used to. Eyes scanning the room, then landing on me. I heard, she said, voice soft. She told Mom everything. Let me guess, I said. She's the victim in her version. Rachel looked tired. Sad. She's a mess, Nate. Like, truly lost. But what she did, no excuse. I nodded. So what do you want me to say? She sat on the arm of the couch, hands clenched together. I want to say I'm sorry. For not seeing it sooner. For not saying something when I saw the way she treated you. You didn't deserve this. That nearly broke me. Because when you're betrayed like this, you start to wonder if anyone sees you. If anyone noticed. Thanks, I said. Voice low. She stood up to leave, then paused. She'll try to come back. She always does. Don't let her. And then she was gone. The door clicked shut. I sat back down, heart pounding in my ears. Because I knew Rachel was right. And the worst part? Some twisted part of me was still waiting to hear her key in the lock. The next few days passed like static. Everything was the same, but off. I'd wake up early, out of habit. Only now there was no one beside me. No sound of the shower running. No hairdryer. No scent of her favorite vanilla body lotion lingering in the hallway. Just silence. I made coffee and only poured 1 cup. Sat in the same spot at the table, across from the empty chair she used to fill, and stared at the spot where she'd smile at her phone while pretending to listen to me talk about my day. The silence was loud, deafening. I started noticing all the little things. How often she'd been working late. How her phone never left her side. How she'd changed her passwords. The way she suddenly cared about her appearance again. I saw it now, all of it. Every red flag I'd ignored because I thought being patient was the same as being strong. She'd been slipping away for months. I just hadn't wanted to admit it. On the 4th night, around 10 p.m., the doorbell rang. I already knew. I didn't even need to check the camera. I opened the door, and there she was. Lauren. No suitcase. No dramatic entrance. Just her. Hair in a loose braid. Eyes slightly puffy. Hoodie too big for her frame. I forgot my charger, she said like we were roommates. Like nothing had happened. I stepped aside. She walked in like she owned the place. Like I didn't watch her walk out of here to be with another man. Her eyes darted around. She noticed the photos were gone. The framed picture of us from Aspen, the one she always said made us look like a magazine couple, was no longer on the wall. Her mouth tightened, just a little. I'll be quick, she muttered, heading upstairs. I followed. Not because I wanted to, but because I didn't trust her anymore. I didn't trust what she'd take, what she'd leave behind. She found the charger, coiled it in her hand, then stood in the doorway of the bedroom for a second too long. This room feels different, she said. No, I replied. You do. She turned to me. Nate, I didn't expect it to go this way. Jake and I don't know what I was thinking. Sure you do, I said calmly. You were thinking about what you wanted, what you could take, what you could get away with. Her lip twitched. It wasn't like that. Yes, it was, I said. Don't lie. Not anymore. She folded her arms. You think you were perfect? You were boring. Predictable. Always talking about mortgage rates and how you fixed the sink like that was some major accomplishment. Jake made me feel alive. I just looked at her. Let her talk. Jake laughed at my jokes, she continued, her voice rising. He didn't zone out or look at his phone when I talked. He made me feel seen. And what now? I asked. You feel seen enough? She didn't answer. So what's the plan, Lauren? You want me to forgive you? You think you can dip in and out of people like lives are a Netflix series? I didn't come here to fight, she snapped. I came for my charger. No, I said. You came to see what was left of me. She didn't deny it. She turned to leave, walked halfway down the stairs, then stopped. Are you seeing someone? She asked, not turning around. I almost laughed. You're unbelievable. It's a fair question, she said. No, I'm not. But I will. One day. And when I do, it'll be someone who knows how to love without needing an audience. She stood there a moment longer, then walked out the door without saying goodbye. I stood at the top of the stairs, staring down at the front door. She was really gone this time. And for the first time, I didn't want her to come back. 3 days passed. No texts. No calls. No mysterious knocks at the door. It was like she evaporated. And honestly, part of me wondered if she thought I was bluffing. Like I'd snap and come crawling back, begging for her to bring her chaos home. But I didn't. I changed the locks, blocked her number. And when Jake sent me another message, this time saying he felt torn and never meant for any of this to happen, I blocked him too. Let them sit in their little fantasy world together. Let them pretend they found something real in the ashes of what they burned down. But just when I started feeling like I could breathe again, the universe decided it wasn't done playing games. It was a Saturday. I went to grab groceries. Just milk, eggs, some fruit. On my way back, I took a different route. I don't even know why. I guess I wasn't ready to go home and sit in that stillness again. That's when I saw it. Jake's Mustang, parked outside a hotel on the edge of town. Not the usual kind of hotel. One of those sleazy motels with hourly rates and flickering neon signs. And standing outside it, Lauren, in a tight black dress, cigarette in hand, pacing like she was waiting for someone to come out. I pulled into the gas station across the street, watched from behind my tinted window, heart pounding like a drum in my chest. She wasn't even trying to hide. She looked annoyed, checking her phone every 2 seconds, lips moving like she was muttering curses. Then the door opened, and some guy walked out. Not Jake. Not even close. This guy was older, balding, wearing a suit jacket that didn't fit right and enough cologne to choke a horse. He walked right up to her, said something, and she laughed, flipped her hair, and wrapped her arm around his. They went back inside. I sat in my car, stunned. So it wasn't just Jake. She hadn't just opened up our marriage. She'd demolished it, danced on the rubble, and started charging admission. And the sickest part? I felt nothing. No anger. No heartbreak. Just disgust. Like I'd dodged a bullet, only to realize it was never aimed at me. It was just firing in every direction, and I happened to be the one closest when the gun went off. I drove home. Didn't say a word. Didn't tell anyone. But that night, I finally did something I'd been putting off. I opened my laptop. Started typing up the divorce papers. No second chances. No counseling. No dramatic speeches in court. Just an end. The next morning, I drove to her mom's house. She wasn't there. I left the envelope on the porch. No note. No explanation. Just silence. My final message. 2 days later, she showed up again. No warning. Just a knock. I opened the door, and there she was, wearing sunglasses again, hair messy, looking like someone who hadn't slept in a week. I got the papers, she said. I waited. I didn't think you'd actually do it. I didn't respond. You know, she said, voice cracking, you're not perfect either. You ignored me for years. You made me feel invisible. I was lonely. I needed something. Someone. So you found 5, I said coldly. She flinched. It wasn't like that. You brought Jake into my bed. You walked out that door and never looked back. Don't stand here pretending this was about loneliness. You did it because you could. Because you knew I wouldn't stop you. She wiped at her face like there were tears, but there weren't. You're really going through with it? I already did. She stood there for another second, then gave this small, bitter laugh. I hope you find someone boring enough for you, she said. Someone who makes spreadsheets sexy and thinks loyalty is enough to make them interesting. And with that, she walked away. That was the last time I saw her. And the last time I ever wanted to. It's been 6 weeks since that final door closed behind her. 6 weeks of silence. 6 weeks of detoxing from a woman who tore through my life like a storm and left behind nothing but cracked walls and the smell of smoke. People kept asking if I was okay. My brother called every few days. My coworker, Jason, even invited me out for drinks, something he never does. And Rachel, Her sister sent one last text saying, "I don't know what to say, but I'm glad you got out." It's strange how fast things begin to feel normal again when the poison leaves the system. At first, the quiet felt like a punishment. Now it feels like peace. There's no guessing game when I walk through the front door. No walking on eggshells. No wondering if I'm going to get a cold shoulder or a fake smile. Just peace. I started working out again. Not for revenge. Not to look better. Just to feel something good again. Muscles aching in a way that makes sense. A soreness with purpose. I'd forgotten what that felt like. The house is cleaner. Lighter. It's mine now, really mine. I moved the furniture. Threw away the old duvet she liked. Bought myself a new set of knives and started cooking again. For myself. Without needing anyone's approval. But the best part? I sleep. God, I sleep. Not the half-aware, tension-filled kind of rest I used to get next to someone who could betray me in the dark and smile at breakfast. No more flinching when the bed shifts. No more waking up to see her scrolling through her phone at 3 a.m. and wondering who she's texting. Now it's deep, heavy, real. And the dreams? They're mine again, too. I had a strange one the other night. I was back at our wedding. Everyone was there. Music, lights, smiles. But in the dream, I was just watching. Like I wasn't really part of it. Lauren stood at the altar in white. But when she turned to me, her face was blank. No eyes. No mouth. Just skin. And Jake was standing right beside her, grinning like a clown. The priest asked if anyone had any objections. I didn't say a word. I just walked away. I woke up with the sun pouring through the window and a calm in my chest I hadn't felt in years. Because maybe that's what healing really is. Not forgetting. Not pretending it never happened. But remembering everything and realizing it doesn't hurt anymore. The closure didn't come from some dramatic apology. It didn't come from justice or revenge. It came from acceptance. From seeing her clearly for the first time and realizing she was never the person I thought I married. She wore a mask for years. And I love the mask. That's the hardest truth to swallow. I wasn't in love with her. I was in love with the version of her I created in my head. The sweet girl who used to call me handsome when I hadn't shaved in a week. The one who cried during movie trailers and brought home my favorite coffee when I was having a bad day. That girl didn't cheat on me. She just never existed. So where does that leave me? Moving on. Slowly. Quietly. Last weekend, I went to a bookstore. Haven't been in one in years. I picked up a novel. Something fictional. Something safe. The woman at the register smiled and said, "You've got good taste." She wasn't flirting, but it felt nice to be noticed without it being a manipulation. I said thanks. I walked out. I didn't look back. A few days ago, I found a letter in the mailbox. No return address, just my name. Nate. Written in handwriting I knew too well. At first, I thought about tossing it straight into the trash. I didn't need another monologue from her, another page of excuses disguised as reflection. But curiosity's a bastard, and it pulled me in. I sat at the kitchen table, coffee in one hand, letter in the other, and opened it. Nate, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, and I wouldn't blame you if you ripped this up without reading it. But if you're still holding this letter, maybe there's a piece of you that still wants closure. Or maybe you just want to understand. I made mistakes. I was selfish. I confused freedom with recklessness. I thought if I did what I wanted, it would make the rest of the pain disappear. But it didn't. Jake wasn't love. He was just a mirror reflecting back the part of me I didn't want to face. I don't know what you're doing right now. I don't even know if you hate me or if you finally let go. I just want you to know, I'm sorry. I really am. Lauren, no manipulation this time. No demands. No barbs. Just plain, flat words on a page. And it didn't move me. That surprised me more than anything. Because the man I used to be, he would have analyzed every sentence, picked it apart for hidden meanings, wondered if this was her attempt at working things out. He would have read it twice, maybe 3 times, maybe even drafted a response just to feel some power back in his hands. But the man sitting at that table, he read it once, then folded it neatly and slid it into the drawer, not out of sentiment, but because it no longer mattered. And that's power. That's healing. That night, I went for a walk. One of those long, quiet walks where you leave your phone at home and let the streets take you wherever they want. No destination. No plan. Just the sound of my own footsteps and the cool bite of wind on my face. I passed the little park down the road. Kids were running around, chasing each other with bubble wands. A couple sat on a bench, holding hands, leaning into one another, laughing. Not loudly. Just soft, easy joy. I didn't feel bitter. I didn't feel envious. I just watched for a minute, then kept walking. Because I know now, love isn't fireworks or lust or flashy moments you post about for validation. Love is peace. It's consistency. It's showing up even on the days when there's nothing glamorous to show for it. Lauren never wanted that. And I did. I still do. Maybe one day, I'll meet someone who wants it too. Someone who won't walk out when life gets boring or hard or imperfect. Someone who doesn't need chaos to feel alive. But until then, I'm good. More than good. I'm free. And for the first time in years, I'm finally me again. The official divorce came through last Tuesday. A plain envelope. A court seal. Just paperwork confirming what I already knew deep down months ago. We were over. No ceremony. No last words. No goodbye hug. Just signatures and silence. I stared at the final page for a while. My name. Her name. That cold, clinical stamp of dissolution of marriage. It should have hurt more, but it didn't. If anything, it felt like finally shutting a door that had been creaking open in the wind too long. I put it in a drawer. Didn't frame it. Didn't burn it. Just stored it like an old file I no longer needed, but wasn't afraid of anymore. That night, I sat on the porch, barefoot, sipping whiskey, wrapped in an old hoodie that still smelled faintly like autumn. The air was crisp. Quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't ask questions. It just lets you breathe. I looked up at the stars. For the first time, they didn't feel so far away. And I thought about everything I'd been through. The nights I spent wondering what I did wrong. The lies I swallowed like pills. The moments I told myself it was all temporary. I thought about Jake. About Lauren. About the version of me that thought love meant suffering in silence. And I felt this calm. Not because I won. Not because I was over it. But because I finally understood it. She didn't ruin me. She revealed me. Revealed the parts of me I ignored. The part that wanted to be chosen, respected, heard. The part that knew deep down I was settling for chaos dressed as love. People always say betrayal makes you bitter. But it didn't. It made me braver. Now I speak up more. I listen to my gut. I know what I want, and I know what I'll never tolerate again. And if I could go back and talk to the version of me that stood in that kitchen, holding a spatula, hearing the words, "Tonight, I'm spending it with your friend," I wouldn't tell him to run or scream or cry. I'd just tell him, hold on. Because this is the fire that's going to forge the man you were always meant to be. And damn if that isn't exactly what happened. So this is the end of that story. But for me, it's just the beginning. The phone was lying there on the kitchen counter, its screen lighting up in the dark of the night. I had been working late, like usual. Julia, my wife, had been acting distant for weeks, but I chalked it up to her being stressed out with work and the kids. The twins were growing up, and her sister had just dropped by to visit, so I assumed everything was fine. I never thought I'd have to worry about my marriage. We were a good couple, right? We had built a life together, raised 2 kids, and always managed to laugh through the chaos. Sure, Julia had been a little colder recently, but who wouldn't be after so many years? That night, I had just gotten out of the shower when I heard her voice. The soft, seductive tone cut through the air, and I froze. "Yeah, he's such an idiot," she whispered. "He thinks he's some hero, working 2 jobs, paying for the college funds. Little does he know, those twins aren't even his. Your sister helped me cover it up. He's been a fool from the start." My heart stopped. I hadn't even moved from where I was standing, still dripping wet, unsure if I had heard her right. She kept talking, but the words were like poison, slowly sinking into my chest. "You know," she continued, her voice dripping with arrogance, "he thinks he's doing the right thing. But really, I'm just playing him. He'll never figure it out. We've got this all under control." I could feel the anger rising in my throat, but I stayed frozen, unable to move. The reality of what I was hearing hit me like a freight train. How could she? How could my wife, the woman I trusted with everything, be so deceitful? The betrayal was suffocating, the weight of her lies crushing me. I stepped forward cautiously, trying to make sense of what I had just overheard. I could hear her giggle, the kind of giggle she used when she thought no one was listening, the kind that made me want to tear down the walls between us. "Don't worry," she said softly. "He'll never know. You're mine now." I could barely stand. The ground beneath my feet felt like it was spinning, my mind racing to process what was happening. The twins, they weren't mine? Everything I had believed in, everything I had worked for, was shattered in a matter of seconds. I should have confronted her then, but I didn't. I stayed still, clenching my fists as the tears of anger welled up. But this wasn't the time. No, I needed to think. I needed to plan my next move. I didn't say anything as I grabbed my phone off the counter, staring at the screen as her words echoed in my head. I had to find the truth, not just in my heart, but in something concrete. I couldn't let this go, couldn't let her get away with what she had done. The next morning, I did something I never thought I would. I got a DNA test for the twins. As soon as the results came back, I had everything I needed. There was no denying it anymore. Thanksgiving Day came, and we all sat around the dinner table, the laughter and the small talk filling the air. But I was far from the happy husband. My mind was on the envelope in my pocket, the proof that would shatter everything. As we sat down to eat, I made my move. "Julia," I said calmly, my voice steady even though I felt like my world was collapsing. "You should see what I found out." The room fell silent as I pulled out the DNA test results and placed them on the table. The look on her face was priceless. Shock, fear, denial. But it was too late. The truth was out. I watched as her mask slipped, the facade of the perfect wife crumbling before my eyes. And that's when I realized everything I had known was a lie. I couldn't stay there, couldn't pretend everything was fine anymore. Without a word, I grabbed my coat, my keys, and walked out of the house, leaving her standing there, speechless. And as I walked out into the cold night, my thoughts were already set. I would vanish. I'd leave everything behind, start fresh, and destroy everything she had built. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about taking back my life. I couldn't stand being in that house anymore. The place that had once been filled with love, laughter, and warmth now felt like a tomb. My mind was a battlefield, the sounds of Julia's voice from the night before still echoing in my ears. The lies, the deceit, the betrayal, everything was so clear now, and it hit me harder than I could have ever imagined. I didn't know where I was going, or what I was going to do next, but I had made up my mind. I needed to vanish, to leave everything behind. My family, my friends, the life I had worked so hard to build. It all meant nothing anymore. I drove for hours without any real destination. The road seemed endless, my thoughts even more so. The kids, they weren't mine. The idea of them calling me dad, for all these years, all the times I'd changed their diapers, taught them to ride bikes, all of it felt like a cruel joke. And Julia, I had been blind to everything. How could she do this to me? I remembered the way her voice had sounded during that phone call. The way she had acted so smug, so sure of herself, like she was in control of everything. My stomach twisted with rage. It was as though she had planned this all along, manipulating me into believing she was the perfect wife, the perfect mother. I wasn't just a fool, I was a complete sucker. And now, I had to pay the price for my ignorance. I didn't call anyone. I didn't want to hear their sympathies, their, "Oh, I'm so sorry, man." I didn't need pity. What I needed was revenge. I needed to show Julia that her lies would cost her everything. I had worked hard for everything I had. She had been nothing but a part of the picture, a picture I no longer wanted. A few days later, after finding a small, anonymous apartment and securing my finances, I started making plans. Everything had to be perfect. I needed to be strategic. Julia thought I was just going to disappear. But I wasn't just disappearing. I was going to destroy everything she had. I sold the house. All of it. The house, the car, the furniture, everything was gone. I liquidated my assets, turning them into something much harder to trace. Julia thought I was just another man running away from his responsibilities. But I had a plan that would bring her to her knees. I knew she would be expecting me to be gone for good. What she didn't know was that I was still watching everything she did, every move she made. I didn't trust her for a second, and I knew she was going to make a mistake. She was a reckless woman, and I knew sooner or later she would slip up. During this time, I had also been reaching out to old friends and business partners. I was quietly rebuilding my empire, only this time, I was going to make sure Julia would never see it coming. I wasn't going to leave without a mark. Weeks passed, and every time I heard something new about her or saw her posting something online, I could feel the fire building inside me. It wasn't just the betrayal anymore, it was the humiliation. She had lied to me for so long, and I had been too blind to see it. But now, I saw everything clearly. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was playing me, using me for everything I was worth. Then one day, I got a phone call that made my blood run cold. "Hey, man," my old buddy Tom said, his voice low, almost hesitant. "I just wanted to let you know. Julia's been seeing someone. It's serious. She's been with him for a while." I couldn't believe it. But at the same time, it made sense. This man, this lover of hers, wasn't just some fling. No, Julia had been planning this for a long time. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. It was a slap in the face. But I wasn't angry anymore. No, I was beyond anger. I was calculating. Every step I took from that moment on was part of a plan to destroy her life just as she had destroyed mine. I hung up the phone, took a deep breath, and smiled. It was time. Time for me to return. Time for me to make my move. A decade had passed since I had left. A decade since I walked away from everything, my home, my kids, my so-called wife. In that time, I had become something else entirely. No longer the naive, trusting man who had once believed in the family unit, I was now a man hardened by betrayal. And as much as I tried to move on, as much as I tried to build something new, one thing never left my mind. Julia. My return was unexpected, to say the least. I didn't come back for a reunion. I didn't come back for closure. I came back with one thing on my mind, revenge. And I was prepared to make Julia regret every single lie, every single betrayal. The moment I set foot back in my hometown, I could feel the weight of my transformation. It wasn't just my appearance that had changed. The man I once was long gone. In his place stood a successful, ruthless businessman, an entity that no one, not even Julia, would recognize. I didn't go to my old house. I didn't even go near the places I used to frequent. I didn't need the memories, nor did I need the people who knew me as the man I used to be. I had no interest in reintroducing myself to my old life. No, I had far more important things to take care of. First, I needed to make sure that Julia knew exactly who I was now, that she understood the consequences of her actions. I started small, building my empire in the shadows. I had the power now, something I had never had before. And I wasn't going to waste it. I knew that Julia had to have heard of me, of the success I'd achieved. She might not know what I had become, but I was sure she had an inkling. No one could build such a reputation without people talking. I had my ways of ensuring that people in her circle were aware of my return. News travels fast in small towns, and within a few weeks, everyone knew that I was back. The whispers started. The rumors about what had happened to me, where I had gone, and who I had become. Julia, of course, had no idea. But that was all part of the plan. I wanted her to think that I was just another lost soul coming back home, broken and beaten. She had no idea how wrong she was. It wasn't until I had set everything in motion that I finally decided it was time to confront her. I knew where she would be, at a local charity event, a gala for the town's elite. It was the perfect place. She had never been able to resist showing off in front of the people who once admired her. I arrived at the event in a black suit that screamed wealth and confidence. I had spent the last decade becoming someone who was now more powerful than her in every sense of the word. As I walked into the room, the eyes of every person in the place were on me. It wasn't arrogance. It was simply the fact that I had something they all wanted. I scanned the room until I found her, Julia. The woman who had destroyed me with her lies, who had turned my entire world upside down. She looked exactly the same as she did when I left, only now, there was an unmistakable air of tension around her. She didn't see me at first, but that would change soon. I walked straight toward her, my presence undeniable. Her eyes finally landed on me, and for a split second, I saw it, the panic, the recognition. She froze, her glass of wine hanging in midair as her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. "Hello, Julia," I said coldly, the words slipping from my tongue like poison. Her face drained of color as she tried to force a smile. "Nick." I didn't. "Don't pretend like you didn't know I was coming," I interrupted. "I'm sure the town has had plenty of whispers about me by now." She swallowed, looking away for a moment. It's been a long time. I didn't think you'd come back." I took a step closer, my eyes locked onto hers. "I didn't come back for you, Julia. I came back to finish what you started. You ruined my life, and now it's time for you to pay the price." Her face twisted, trying to hold onto her composure, but I could see the cracks forming. She had never been a strong woman, not like me. She was always the type to manipulate, to use people for her own gain. And I had been her greatest victim. "You don't know what you're talking about," she said, her voice shaking with a mixture of fear and anger. "I don't owe you anything, Nick. You left. You abandoned us." "No, Julia," I said, my voice low but laced with fury. "I didn't abandon you. I walked away from a lie. And now I'm here to make sure you never forget what you did to me." The room felt suffocating as Julia stood there, her once perfect composure now cracking under the weight of my words. She tried to regain control, a fake smile creeping onto her face, but I could see the fear in her eyes. This wasn't the confident woman who had once manipulated me. This was a terrified shell of the person I had once loved. You really think you can just waltz back into my life and destroy everything I've worked for? She spat, her voice cold, but her hands trembled ever so slightly. You think I'll just roll over and let you ruin me? You have no idea what you're talking about. I smirked, watching as she struggled to hold on to her dignity. Oh, I have a pretty good idea, Julia. I know exactly what I'm talking about. I've watched you. I've heard you. I know about the lies you've been telling, the affair, the manipulation. You thought I wouldn't figure it out, but I've been watching, and now it's time to pay the price. Her face contorted with anger, and for a brief moment, I saw the woman who had broken me all those years ago. She had always been this way, cold, calculating, using people for her own selfish desires. But now, she was cornered, and it was a beautiful thing to witness. You're pathetic, she sneered. You think you can come back and ruin my life just because you're some millionaire now? You think that matters? You really have no idea who you're dealing with. I leaned in, my voice lowering to a dangerous whisper. No, Julia. You're the one who has no idea who you're dealing with. You've been living a lie for so long that you don't even recognize the truth when it hits you in the face. You ruined my life. You stole from me. You took everything I worked for, and you thought I wouldn't find out. But I did. Her eyes flickered with panic, and for the first time, I saw a crack in her armor. It wasn't much, but it was enough. She was starting to realize that this wasn't some game. This wasn't about money, power, or revenge. It was about everything she had taken from me. I didn't steal anything from you, she hissed, but I could tell she was trying to convince herself more than me. You left me. You abandoned us. You gave up on everything. I chuckled bitterly, my eyes never leaving hers. I didn't give up on anything, Julia. You gave up on me the moment you decided to betray me. You gave up on us the moment you decided to sleep with him, your lover, the man you've been with all this time. You gave up on me when you lied to my face and told me everything was fine. So don't stand there and try to turn this around on me. Her face reddened with anger, her lips curling into a snarl. You have no right to talk to me like that. You have no idea what it's been like for me, raising the kids, trying to hold everything together while you were gone. You think this has been easy for me? I leaned in even closer, my voice sharp as a blade. You think you've had it hard? Do you think I had it easy, Julia? I spent years thinking I was raising children that weren't even mine. I spent years thinking you were the woman I married, when all along, you were lying to me. So don't talk to me about what's hard. Because right now, it's hard for you. And it's only going to get harder. She recoiled as if my words had physically struck her. I saw the tears welling up in her eyes, but I didn't care. For all the pain I had endured, this was the moment I had been waiting for. This was the reckoning. The moment when Julia finally understood that the man she had once broken was no longer the same man. You think this is over? She whispered, her voice trembling. You think you can just come back and destroy me, ruin my life like this? You can't. I won't let you. I shook my head slowly, my eyes cold and unfeeling. You don't get it, Julia. It's already over. I've been planning this for years. You've been living in your little bubble, thinking you could get away with it. But I'm not going to let you. I'm not going to let you destroy everything I've worked for. Her face twisted with rage, but there was nothing she could do. The truth was out. The lies she had built her life on were crumbling around her, and there was no way to stop it now. You're pathetic, she repeated, her words losing their sting. She was grasping for control, but she had already lost. You think you can come back and just take everything from me? You're nothing. I stepped back, looking down at her with cold, detached eyes. No, Julia. You're nothing. And that's what's going to destroy you in the end. You thought I was weak. You thought I was nothing. But look at me now. I turned away, leaving her standing there, broken. I didn't need to say anything more. The damage had already been done. And as I walked out of the gala, I knew it wasn't over yet. No, this was just the beginning. The days after my confrontation with Julia were a blur of satisfaction and frustration. Satisfaction because, for the first time in a long while, I felt like I had regained control over my life. Frustration because I knew this was just the beginning. The hard part was yet to come. Julia had tried to spin her lies one more time, calling me and texting me constantly, as if she could somehow apologize her way out of this mess. But I wasn't interested in her apologies. I wasn't interested in her attempts to explain herself. I was beyond that now. She had crossed a line, and nothing she said could undo the damage. She even tried to play the victim, sending messages about how hard it had been to raise the kids alone, how I had left her with all the responsibility. But I wasn't buying it anymore. The twins weren't mine. They had never been mine. And everything we had built together was a lie. I was done feeling sorry for her. I was done with the guilt that had plagued me for so many years. Julia had built a life on my trust, and now she was going to pay for it. The first real blow came when the media started picking up on my return. There were whispers about me, about my sudden success, about the fortune I had built from nothing. It was a small town, and news like mine spread like wildfire. People wanted to know who I was, what I was doing, and why I had left everything behind. But what really shocked Julia was when the rumors reached her circle. It wasn't just about my wealth or my business ventures anymore. It was about the affair. It was about how I had returned as the first billionaire in town. And Julia, the woman who had tried to ruin me, was now at the center of the scandal. Her friends were no longer supporting her. They had all heard the whispers about her affair, about her lies. They had started to see her for what she really was, a manipulative, deceitful woman who had used her family to get ahead. One night, I received an unexpected visit from one of her closest friends, Rachel. She was someone I had always gotten along with, someone who had once told me I was lucky to have Julia. But now, she had come to apologize. "I'm sorry, Nick," Rachel said as she sat down in front of me. "I had no idea. I didn't know she was doing that to you. I didn't know what was really going on behind closed doors." I looked at her, my expression cold. "It doesn't matter now, Rachel. She did what she did, and I'm done with it. There's no going back." She sighed, her eyes filled with regret. "I can't believe she would do this. I should have seen the signs. But I was so blinded by her, I didn't want to believe it. I'm so sorry." I leaned back in my chair, looking out the window. The town had changed in the years I'd been gone. So had I. I was no longer the man I had once been. The man who had been betrayed by the woman he loved. I had become someone else, someone stronger, someone capable of destroying everything in my path. "I don't need your apologies," I said quietly. "I don't need anyone's apologies. Julia's made her choices, and now it's time for me to make mine." Rachel nodded, her eyes filling with tears. "I don't know what she was thinking, Nick. But I know she was wrong. She doesn't deserve you." I didn't answer. What was there to say? Julia didn't deserve me. But that didn't matter anymore. It wasn't about her anymore. It was about me. It was about the life I had built, the empire I had created from the wreckage she left behind. The next few weeks were filled with more surprises. Julia tried everything to salvage her reputation, but the damage was done. She tried to pretend that everything was fine, that she was the same woman she had always been. But the cracks were showing, and people were starting to see her for who she truly was. I made sure of it. I didn't need to expose her any further. The whispers had already started. Her lies were unraveling before her eyes, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. I didn't want to destroy her publicly. That wasn't necessary. She had done it to herself. But I had to make sure she knew I had moved on, that I had the life she could never have. I kept building my business, expanding, making more connections, and becoming even more successful. I didn't need her anymore. I didn't need the life she had taken from me. I had built something of my own, something that was far more valuable than anything she could ever offer. Julia was left to pick up the pieces of the life she had ruined. She had lost everything, her friends, her family, her reputation. And as much as she tried to put on a brave face, I knew the truth. She had nothing left. And that was exactly what she deserved. Days turned into weeks, and the fallout from my return only continued to escalate. Julia's life, the one she had carefully constructed on lies, began to crumble in front of her eyes. There was no escape from the truth now. Her affair, her manipulation, her betrayal, it was all out in the open. She could no longer hide behind her facade of being the perfect wife or mother. The town was buzzing with gossip, and everyone knew what she had done. I could see the toll it was taking on her. Every time we crossed paths, whether at the grocery store or at a business meeting, I could see the weight of her guilt bearing down on her. Her eyes no longer held that same smug confidence. There was fear now. Fear that people were starting to see her for who she really was. But there was something more satisfying than seeing her squirm. It was watching her try so desperately to maintain control, to keep up the image she had spent years constructing. She tried to salvage her relationships with the people in her life, but they were no longer buying her act. Her friends had distanced themselves, her family was growing wary of her, and the people who had once admired her were starting to question everything they had believed about her. I wasn't doing anything to make it worse. Julia was doing all the damage herself. She had dug her own grave, and all I had to do was step back and watch as she fell deeper into it. But despite everything, Julia still hadn't given up. She still hadn't admitted to her wrongdoings. She still hadn't apologized. I wasn't expecting her to. That wasn't what I wanted. What I wanted was for her to truly realize what she had lost and to understand the gravity of her actions. Then came the final blow. It happened one evening when I received a message from a familiar number. Julia. Nick, please, the text read. Can we talk? I'm sorry for everything. I made a mistake. I don't want to lose you. I never wanted to hurt you. I stared at the message for a moment, my heart hardened by everything she had put me through. I had no interest in hearing her excuses or her apologies anymore. But something inside me told me I had to face her one last time. I agreed to meet her at a local cafe, the same place we had visited on our first date, the place where we had shared laughs and dreams about the future. It seemed fitting, I guess, that our final confrontation would take place there. When I arrived, she was already sitting at a table, her hands wringing nervously in her lap. Her eyes were red, as if she had been crying, and there was a slight tremble in her voice when she saw me. I didn't know who I was anymore. Nick, she started, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know what I was doing. I was lost, and I made so many mistakes. I thought I could control everything, but I couldn't. I sat down across from her, watching her carefully. I wasn't sure what I was expecting from this conversation, but I knew it wasn't going to change anything. It wasn't going to make me forget what she had done. Don't, I said, cutting her off. Don't try to make excuses, Julia. It's too late for that. You knew exactly what you were doing. You knew you were lying to me. You knew you were betraying me. And you did it anyway. She flinched, but I didn't care. She had made her choices, and now it was time to face the consequences. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said softly, her voice cracking with emotion. I just want you to know that I regret everything. I never wanted to hurt you. I was selfish, and I see that now. I see everything I've lost. I leaned back in my chair, looking at her with cold eyes. It's too late for regret, Julia. You took everything from me, and now I'm taking it all back. She looked at me, the realization sinking in. She knew what I meant. I had built an empire from the ground up. I had created a life for myself that was bigger and better than anything she could have ever dreamed of. And now, I was going to make sure she understood the price of her actions. Everything you build on my back is gone, I said, my voice unwavering. The life you've been living, the life you thought was yours, doesn't belong to you anymore. It's mine now, and I'll make sure everyone knows it. Her face turned pale, the weight of my words hitting her like a ton of bricks. She opened her mouth to speak, but I held up my hand, stopping her. I don't need your apology, Julia, I said, standing up. What I need is for you to understand that you can't run from the consequences. You can't escape what you've done, and I'll make sure the world knows the truth about you. I turned to leave, but as I reached the door, I paused. I looked back at her one last time. Goodbye, Julia, I said. This is the end. And with that, I walked out of the cafe, leaving her behind. For good. The days after I left Julia at the cafe were strangely quiet. The storm had passed. The confrontation had happened, the final blow delivered. But I knew that the real work was just beginning. I wasn't done yet. I had plans that would leave her and everything she had built in ruins. I had made it clear to Julia that she could no longer hide behind her lies, but now I needed to show her just how powerful I had become. She thought she had won all those years ago when she had convinced me that everything was fine, that I was just a good provider, a good dad. But she was wrong. I wasn't just some fool who could be manipulated anymore. I had reinvented myself, turned my anger and betrayal into fuel for something much greater. I had spent the last decade carefully plotting my revenge, but it wasn't just about destroying her. It was about showing the world who she really was and taking everything she had built with the same ruthless efficiency she had used to tear my life apart. I had already begun the process. The first step was simple enough: sever all ties. I had no interest in dealing with her, her friends, or anyone connected to her. I pulled my business deals away from her associates, distancing myself from every connection that could potentially help her. Julia's little empire of lies had depended on a fragile network of people who were loyal to her, but I could see the cracks already starting to form. The whispers were growing louder, and I wasn't about to let her escape without facing the consequences. A few weeks after the cafe meeting, I decided to attend a local gala, a prestigious event where Julia had always made sure to flaunt her status. It was the perfect place to set the final stage of my plan into motion. She would be there, of course, with her new lover, the man she had chosen over me. I had no doubt she would be acting as though nothing had changed, pretending to be the same woman she had been before everything fell apart. But I knew better. As soon as I walked into the gala, I could feel the tension in the air. Heads turned, and eyes followed me as I moved through the crowd. I wasn't just a guest at this event, I was a spectacle. People whispered, wondering who I was, what I had done to achieve the success that had everyone talking. But there was one person in the room who couldn't hide her anxiety, Julia. She was standing at the center of the room, looking as perfect as ever, but there was something different about her. Gone was the smug confidence, replaced by the nervous twitch in her eye whenever she noticed me glancing in her direction. Her lover, the man who had helped her tear apart everything I had worked for, was by her side, trying to act like he belonged. But I knew the truth. He was just another pawn in her game. I made my way toward them, my eyes locked onto Julia. When she finally saw me, her face paled, and she almost dropped the glass of champagne in her hand. She took a step back, as if she could somehow retreat from the situation, but it was too late. "I didn't think you'd show up," she said, her voice shaky, though she tried to mask the fear with a forced smile. "What are you doing here?" "I think you already know," I replied, my tone colder than I had ever heard it. "You didn't think I'd leave quietly, did you?" She blinked, clearly trying to grasp for control of the situation, but it was slipping away from her. Her lover, sensing her discomfort, stepped forward. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, trying to act like a tough guy. But his bravado was nothing compared to the power I had amassed in the years since I left. I smiled, a tight, cruel smile. "The problem is that you're standing next to a woman who has ruined people's lives. You're her latest victim, and I'm sure you'll find out soon enough just how well she plays the game." Julia's eyes darted between me and her lover. She could see the writing on the wall. This wasn't just about me anymore. I wasn't trying to make her feel guilty, nor was I seeking closure. No, I had far bigger plans. I was going to make sure that the world knew exactly who she was and what she had done. Her lover didn't know how to respond, and that's when I dropped the bombshell. "I've made sure that the people you've been lying to know the truth," I said, speaking louder now so everyone could hear. "I've made sure that your lies are exposed for what they really are. And the best part? You can't stop it." The room seemed to hold its breath as the realization set in. Julia's carefully crafted image, the life she had built on deceit, was crumbling in front of her. The whispers were already circulating, the news already spreading. Her friends, her family, everyone who had stood by her were now hearing the truth. For the first time in a long time, I saw her eyes fill with panic. It was the kind of panic that comes when you realize everything you've worked for is slipping away. Her voice wavered as she tried to hold on to some shred of dignity. "You can't do this," she said, her words now a desperate plea. "You'll regret this, Nick." But I had no intentions of regretting anything. I had spent too many years watching her walk all over me. Too many years letting her manipulate me. No, this was my time. This was the moment I had been working toward. And there was no going back. "I'm not doing anything, Julia," I said, my voice low but steady. "I'm just making sure you face the consequences of your actions. And believe me, they're coming. I'm not the one who's going to regret anything." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, her perfect world shattered. I had done it. Everything I set out to do, every carefully crafted plan, every calculated move, had worked. Julia's world was now a hollow shell, the lies she built her life on crashing down around her. But as I stood there, watching her crumble in the aftermath, something inside me still felt empty. It was strange. After all these years, after everything she had taken from me, I thought seeing her pay for what she did would bring me peace. But it didn't. Instead, there was just this overwhelming sense of emptiness, as though I had won, but at the cost of my own soul. The gala continued around me, but I couldn't bring myself to care. I had taken everything she held dear, and she knew it. The whispers were already spreading like wildfire, and soon, no one in town would be able to pretend they didn't know the truth about Julia. But even as I stood there, watching her try to salvage whatever dignity she had left, I realized that the damage she had caused would haunt me for a long time. Sure, she had been the one who destroyed our family, who tore everything apart, but I had been complicit in my own way. I had let it happen. I had let her manipulate me, control me. I had let her lie to me for years, and that was the part one couldn't forgive myself for. I had spent so much time focusing on revenge, on making her pay, that I had forgotten what it really meant to heal. I had been consumed by my need for justice, and in doing so, I had lost sight of everything else, my own happiness, my own peace of mind. Revenge, I realized, wasn't as sweet as they made it out to be. It was hollow, fleeting, and ultimately unsatisfying. As the night wore on, I couldn't help but watch Julia from a distance. She had tried so hard to hold on to her image of being the perfect wife, the perfect mother. She had tried to make herself out to be the victim in all of this, but the truth was clear to everyone now. She wasn't a victim. She was a liar. She was a manipulator. Her lover had left her side by the time I made my way to the door. I watched as she stood there alone, surrounded by people who had once adored her but now looked at her with distrust and disappointment. I knew that this was the moment she had been dreading. This was the moment she realized that there was no escaping her past. She had played her cards, and now she had nothing left. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I had walked away, leaving her behind, but it wasn't just about leaving her behind physically. I had left her behind emotionally as well. I was done with her lies, done with the manipulation. I had given her far more chances than she deserved, and now I was free. I had taken back control of my life, and I wasn't going to let her have any more of it. As I stepped outside into the cool night air, I felt the weight of the years lift off my shoulders. It was over. For the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of clarity. The anger, the frustration, the pain, it was all starting to fade. I was moving on, and I was going to be okay. But even as I walked away from the gala, from Julia, and from everything that had once been my life, I knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. I had a long way to go before I could truly heal. There would still be days when I would be haunted by the memories of what I had lost. There would still be moments when I questioned my choices, when I wondered if I had done the right thing. But those moments were just that, moments. I would not let them define me. I had rebuilt myself from the ground up, and I would continue to do so. I had learned the hard way that trust was fragile, that love could be used as a weapon, and that sometimes the people you trust the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. But I had also learned that I was stronger than I had ever known. I had learned that I could survive, that I could rebuild, and that I could rise above anything life threw at me. As the night stretched on, I found myself standing in front of my apartment, the city lights casting a faint glow on the streets. I had come a long way from the man I once was, the man who had been torn apart by Julia's betrayal. Now, I was someone new. Someone who had learned the hard way what it meant to lose everything, and what it meant to take it all back. I didn't look back at the gala, at the people inside, or at the woman who had once been my wife. I didn't need to. The past was the past, and I was done with it. I had walked away, and I was finally free. "You really thought they were yours?" That's what she said, right in my face. Lip curled, voice dripping with venom, like I was garbage beneath her heels. We were standing in the backyard, music blasting, people laughing, her big day in full swing. Balloons everywhere. Influencers snapping selfies by the custom photo wall. And I was just the supportive husband holding a champagne glass, until I dropped it. I had just hit her with a quiet question, whispered into her ear. "Emily, tell me the truth. Are the kids mine?" She pulled back, narrowed her eyes, and then laughed, loud enough for people nearby to glance over. Then she leaned in and whispered back. "Saul always said you were the perfect fool. You've raised his kids for 22 years. And now, I'm done pretending." Boom. That was the moment everything shattered. And you know what the worst part was? She looked relieved, like she'd been waiting to drop that truth on me, waiting to humiliate me. The woman I gave everything to, 5 kids, a home, my youth, just smiled and said, "You'll always be a backup plan, Daniel." I needed stability. You were safe. But Saul? He was real. My hands were shaking. I could barely breathe. But I didn't yell. I didn't punch a wall. I smiled. Because she had no idea what was coming next. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I let her words sit in the air like poison, thick and burning. The laughter around us kept going. People clinking glasses, taking selfies with Emily's name printed in gold on the flower wall behind us. But in my head, everything had gone silent. All I could hear was the echo of her voice. "Saul always said you were the perfect fool." She said it like she meant it, like she enjoyed it. I looked at her. This woman I built a life with. 22 years. 5 birthdays a year. 5 school pickups. 5 little faces that used to light up when I walked through the door. All of it fake? She took a slow sip from her champagne, eyes never leaving mine. It was like she wanted to see how far she could push before I snapped. "You really had no idea?" she added, quieter this time, almost pitying. "Jacob has Saul's chin. Lily's nose is a copy-paste of his mother's. You were too busy being proud to ever question it." I wanted to scream, tear everything down, ask why, how, when, but I didn't. I forced myself to swallow every piece of rage climbing my throat. Because this wasn't the moment to lose it. This was just the spark. The fire was still coming. I leaned closer, close enough for her perfume to choke me. "Don't move," I said quietly. "I've been planning this for 3 months. Don't ruin it now." Her smile faltered just a bit. She blinked. Once. Twice. That's when she knew. She hadn't been dealing with the same man she married. I walked away. Past the food truck. Past her influencer friends holding cameras and fake laughs. I stepped onto the patio and took the mic. Emily turned slowly, her smile snapping back into place like a mask. She thought I was about to toast her. Praise her. Like the puppet husband I'd always been. "Can I get your attention?" I said into the mic. The crowd simmered down. Some turned with interest. Some kept their phones out, still recording, expecting some heartfelt husband speech. Maybe a viral TikTok moment. What they got instead was the beginning of her end. "First of all," I began, "thank you all for coming to celebrate the most delusional person I've ever known." A few nervous laughs. Emily froze. I didn't stop. "I've known for a while now. About Saul. About the lies. About the 5 kids that were never mine." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Her sister choked on her drink. One of her friends stepped back like she didn't want to be too close when the bomb dropped. I was supposed to be the provider. The loyal one. The safe choice. That's what she called me in her texts to her real man. I pulled the burner phone from my pocket and tapped the mic with it. She sent him pictures. While I was at work. While I was at soccer games. While I was, my voice cracked, teaching his son how to ride a bike. Emily finally moved, stepping toward me, arm outstretched. "Daniel, don't do this. We can talk." "No," I cut her off. "You had 22 years to talk. Now it's my turn." I looked around the backyard. All eyes were on me. I held up a manila folder. Paternity tests. 1 for each child. You'll find they share one common father. And it's not me. Her mother covered her mouth. Her best friend turned and walked straight out the gate. I finished it with one line. "Emily, this is your big day. So enjoy it. You've just gone viral. The whole world's about to meet the woman who conned a man into raising another man's kids for 2 decades. Then I dropped the mic literally and walked out of that backyard like I had just crawled out of hell. Because I had. And I wasn't coming back. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. I drove until the gas light came on, then parked under a dead street lamp near an abandoned strip mall. My hands were still shaking, and the buzzing in my ears wouldn't stop. The night was cold, but I didn't care. My whole body felt numb, like my blood had turned to ice the moment she laughed in my face. She laughed. That's what haunted me the most. Not just the betrayal. Not just the years of lies. But the fact that she seemed to enjoy it. That she took pleasure in humiliating me. Like it gave her power. I stared at the roof of the car and tried to remember when it started. When the shift happened. When the woman I married turned into that. Maybe it was 10 years ago, when Saul showed up at her high school reunion, and suddenly she started working out more, staying out later. Maybe it was earlier, when she had our 3rd kid and stopped letting me touch her, but still had that glow every other night. I don't know. I was blind. Or maybe just stupid. Perfect fool, right? I thought back to the way she'd look at me during family dinners. Always just a little too polite. Too distant. The way she never really held my hand in public anymore. I thought it was just marriage fatigue. I thought we were fine. But now I see it was always fake. A performance. Every smile. Every "I love you." Every "you're a great dad." Lies. I remember one time, about 3 years ago, when our son Noah came home crying because he got into a fight at school. I sat with him on the porch for an hour, talking him through it. He hugged me and said, "You're the best dad in the world." And I believed it. I felt it. But now, that memory burns. Because while I was building him up, Emily was probably sending Saul another photo under the bedsheets. Calling me the babysitter. The ATM. The joke. I wanted to hate the kids. I really did. But I couldn't. They didn't ask for this. They didn't know. They loved me. And deep down, I still loved them. That's the part Emily could never kill. Not even with the truth. But her? I was done. That night, sitting in my car, I started making a list. Not of revenge. Not anymore. That part was already in motion. I had already burned the illusion down in front of everyone who mattered to her. Her influencer career? Toast. Her friends? Scattered. Her image? Shattered. No, the list I made was about freedom. What I wanted now. What I needed to rebuild. Because she took 22 years from me. I wasn't giving her another second. Item 1, lawyer. A brutal one. Item 2, DNA results formally filed. Full custody battle on principle. Even if the court ruled they weren't biologically mine, I'd force her to explain it publicly. Make her squirm. Item 3. Write letters to each of the kids. Not to turn them against her, but to explain who I am, who I was, and that no matter what blood says, I was always there. I always showed up. I ended the night at a motel. Cheap. Quiet. No questions. I lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling until the sun started bleeding through the curtains. And then, as if on cue, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. Daniel, a deep voice said. This is Saul. I froze. You got your moment, he said calmly. Now you need to stop. Don't ruin their lives just because you feel hurt. He wasn't threatening me. Not yet. But he was warning me. And that made me smile. Because he had no idea what I still had left to unleash. I hung up without saying a word. Then I called my lawyer. Emily thought the show was over. But I was just getting started. The lawyer's office was cold. Not the temperature, just the energy. The kind of sterile, polished place where people came to dismantle lives with pen strokes instead of weapons. I slid the folder across the glass table. Birth certificates, photos, printed texts, audio files, a copy of the paternity results. I didn't flinch as he opened it. Didn't look away when he saw the name Saul Reynolds appear 5 times under biological father. He whistled low. Jesus, Daniel. All 5. I nodded once. Every single one. He leaned back in his chair, tapping a pen against his teeth. Well, you've got a few ways to play this. Depends if you want to go nuclear. I stared him straight in the eye. I already did. Now I want full control. He laid out options. Divorce proceedings. Custody claims. Even though I wasn't the bio dad, I had 22 years of consistent parenting, so I could fight for visitation, possibly shared custody. More importantly, we could sue for emotional distress, fraud, asset division with proof of infidelity. I didn't want her money. I wanted her cornered. Completely. No way out. By the time I left that office, papers were being drafted. My name would no longer be tied to hers in any legal sense within 60 days. But that wasn't fast enough. So I started phase 2. I went home. The house was quiet when I walked in. Too quiet. She was probably hiding upstairs, pretending this would all blow over. That I'd apologize for embarrassing her. That we'd talk. I walked into the kitchen, where her phone was charging. Still unlocked. Still connected to the cloud. I pulled everything. Messages, call logs, photos, cloud backups. I sent them to myself. I wasn't going to use them to go public. No, I already did that. This wasn't about going louder. This was about going deeper. She came downstairs a few minutes later, robe tied tight, like some grieving widow. Hair messy. No makeup. Her real face, the one I hadn't seen in years. Daniel, she started, voice soft. I didn't mean for you to find out like that. I laughed. I couldn't help it. You didn't mean for me to hear you say I was a fool? Didn't mean to tell your friend that I raised Saul's kids like some kind of charity case? Her lip twitched. That was private. No, Emily. Our wedding vows were private. That was just filth. She took a step forward. I never wanted to hurt you. Then why did you do it for 2 decades? She didn't answer. Just lowered her head like she was searching for sympathy in the cracks of the tile. I leaned on the counter. Tell me, just once, was there ever a moment, any moment, where you looked at me and thought, I'm lucky to have him? Silence. That was my answer. I grabbed my things, walked past her, and as I opened the door, she called after me. They're going to hate you when they find out. The kids. You know that, right? I turned slowly. They'll know who lied. And who stayed. Then I left. That night, I sent each of them an email. Honest. Raw. No blame on them. Just facts. I told them I loved them. That I raised them the best I knew how. That no matter what they chose to believe after this, I was always the one who showed up. Always. The responses didn't come right away. But one did. From Jacob, the oldest. 2 lines. I don't care what the DNA says. You're my dad. I'm coming to see you. I stared at the screen until my eyes blurred. Emily didn't break me. She just showed me who I really was. And who she never deserved. Jacob showed up the next morning. No warning. No call. Just a knock on the motel door while I was halfway through a coffee that tasted like burnt plastic and shame. I opened it, and there he was. Hood up, backpack slung over one shoulder, eyes red but not from crying. He looked like he hadn't slept, like every wall in his world had been torn down overnight. He didn't say anything at first. just stood there. Then, quietly, "Is it true?" I stepped aside and let him in. He dropped his bag near the table, sat on the edge of the bed, hands clasped like he was afraid to hear the answer. I sat across from him, suddenly unsure of everything I thought I knew about fatherhood. "I got the results," I said. "They're real." He didn't react, just nodded slowly. "Did she admit it?" he asked. "She didn't need to," I said. I heard her say it. To a friend. Laughing. Jacob's jaw tightened. I saw him bite the inside of his cheek the way he always did when he was pissed. He used to do it as a kid when we'd tell him to go to bed early. Now he did it when his entire life fell apart. "I'm sorry," I said. "For what?" he snapped. "You didn't lie. You didn't cheat. You didn't pretend." He stood up, paced the room like the carpet was on fire. "I thought Saul was just some random guy. Mom always called him a family friend. Said he helped with her career stuff sometimes. He stopped. I never even liked him. He was always so fake. Gave me this weird look whenever I'd call you dad." I swallowed hard. "He's your biological father." He turned. "But you're my real one." It hit me in the chest like a freight train. He sat again, calmer now. "The others don't know yet. Mom's trying to explain it gently, which means she's probably spinning some story where you're the villain and Saul's a romantic hero." I shook my head. "Doesn't matter. The truth's out. You saw it." He nodded. "So what now?" "I fight," I said. "Not to destroy her. Not even for revenge anymore. But to stay in your lives. To not vanish like she clearly wanted me to." He smiled, just a little. "Good. Because I don't care what those papers say. You taught me how to ride a bike. You came to every game. You sat in the car with me the night I totaled Mom's car and didn't tell her for a week. You're my dad." I didn't cry. I wanted to, but I didn't. Later that day, my lawyer called. Said Emily had already filed first. She beat me to it. Claimed emotional abuse, gaslighting, and public humiliation. She was trying to flip the whole story around like I was the one who had done her wrong. Of course she was. That was her pattern. Lie, deflect, destroy. She knew I had the documents, the recordings, the proof. But she also knew public sympathy was a weapon, and she was good at playing the victim. The pretty, cheated-on wife of a cold, bitter husband who lost his mind and embarrassed her in front of friends. I told my lawyer to hit back. Hard. He filed a countersuit the same day. Fraud. Paternity deception. Emotional cruelty. We added the full packet of evidence and submitted an emergency request for a judge to review the DNA results and freeze shared assets. I was going for the throat now, and just when I thought the week couldn't get darker, Saul called again. This time I answered. "You need to stop dragging her name through the mud," he said. "Say that again," I replied. Slower. "You've done enough damage, Daniel." I laughed. "You got your 5 kids. You got your mistress. Now you want to play knight in shining armor." He didn't answer. I continued, "Don't worry. I'm not dragging her name. I'm just showing people what she really is. She's the mother of your kids." "No," I corrected. "She's the woman who used me to raise yours." He started to speak again, but I hung up. I wasn't interested in his voice anymore. I had plans to make, court dates to prepare for, and letters to send to my other 4 kids before she poisoned their minds. Emily thought the worst was over. She had no idea what was still coming. 2 days later, my daughter Emma called me. She was crying before she even said hi. I stepped out of the lawyer's office and leaned against the brick wall, heart racing like I'd just stepped into a burning building. I had rehearsed a dozen different ways this conversation might happen. None of them prepared me for the actual sound of her pain. "Dad," she sobbed, "is it true?" I didn't know how to answer. I didn't want to say yes and break her. I didn't want to lie and protect Emily. "Emma," I said carefully, "I love you. That hasn't changed. But yes, the test says I'm not your biological father." Silence. Long, heavy. Then a whisper. "Mom said you made it all up. That you're trying to hurt her. That you hacked something." I almost laughed. That was so Emily. Even caught red-handed, she still painted herself as the victim and me as some villain with a keyboard. "I didn't hack anything," I said gently. "I took a real test. I sent it to a real lab. And I didn't do it because I wanted to hurt anyone. I did it because I heard her say it herself, Emma. On the phone. She said I wasn't the father. She laughed about it." Emma's breathing was shaky. "Is that why you left?" "I didn't leave you," I said quickly. "I left the lie. I left the woman who made me live it. But not you. Not Jacob. Not your brothers. Not Lily." She sniffled again, quieter. "Are you coming to Lily's recital?" That nearly broke me. "Of course I am," I said. I'll be there in the front row, like always. Nothing changes that. She didn't say much after that, just whispered, okay, and hung up. But it was enough. One by one, they were starting to see. The cracks Emily swore I'd never make were spreading through her pretty little mask. Later that night, I got an email from an anonymous address, but I knew who it was. A single video file. No subject. No message. I hesitated for a moment before opening it. It was Emily, in our bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed, wearing something she used to wear for me, and Saul, shirtless, behind the camera. My heart didn't drop this time. It didn't even speed up. I watched the first 10 seconds, long enough to hear her giggle and say, he's probably tucking the kids in right now, before I paused it, deleted it, and forwarded it straight to my lawyer. She was trying to shake me. She thought that would push me over the edge, that I'd explode, break down, call her, scream at her. But I was done with all of that. The next day, my attorney filed for emergency protection of personal property, citing emotional manipulation. We submitted the video, not for court evidence, but to show the pattern. Emily was spiraling. Her perfect image was falling apart. Then, just when I thought she'd gone as low as she could go, she showed up at my motel, knocking like she had every right to be there, wearing a coat over a tight black dress, like she was walking straight out of a music video instead of a broken marriage. I opened the door halfway. She smiled like nothing had ever happened. Can we talk? I didn't say anything. She stepped forward, brushing past me, letting herself in, like the room was hers too. You made your point, she said casually, sitting on the edge of the bed. You embarrassed me, hurt me, ruined everything. Happy. I shut the door behind me. I didn't ruin anything, Emily. You did that. I just held up the mirror. She crossed her legs. The kids are confused, upset. They think you're the one tearing the family apart. Because that's what you told them, I snapped. She didn't deny it. I can fix this, she said, standing slowly. We can fix this. You and me. Drop the case. Come home. We'll tell people it was just a rough patch. People forget. They always forget. I stared at her like she'd grown horns. You think I'd take you back? After what you did? She stepped closer, put a hand on my chest. You're still wearing the ring. I looked down at her hand, pulled the ring off without a word, dropped it on the table. I was holding on to something that didn't exist, I said. But I'm not that man anymore. She backed away, finally starting to realize the door was closing, for good. She picked up the ring, stared at it, then turned to leave. At the door, she looked back. Her face changed. No more smiles. Just pure venom. You'll regret this, she said. I didn't flinch. Already did. For 22 years. And then she was gone. For the first time in weeks, I finally slept without nightmares. I didn't see Emily again after that night. Not in person, anyway. She tried. Oh, she tried. A few more texts. A couple of voicemails that swung between fake sorrow and veiled threats. Her usual game. Emotional ping-pong until someone folds. But I didn't fold this time. I was done playing. The court date came and went. My lawyer annihilated her claims. Her accusations of abuse fell flat under the weight of my evidence. Screenshots, voice recordings, even old photos where Saul was far too familiar in the background of our family memories. The judge didn't care for her crocodile tears. Didn't even blink when she tried to flip it and say I'd manipulated the kids. In the end, she walked away with what was hers. Nothing. The house went into my name. Her business fell apart under the pressure of sponsors pulling out. Turns out no one wants to work with someone who becomes a trending topic for being a pathological liar. Especially not after the clip of me calling her out at the party went viral. Millions of views. Thousands of comments. Most of them asking how I didn't see it sooner. Others, men mostly, thanking me for saying what they never could. For walking through the fire and dragging the truth out the other side. Jacob moved in with me full-time. Emma started spending weekends at my new apartment. Even Noah, the quiet one, texted me once with a simple line. You didn't leave us. She left you a long time ago. That one wrecked me. I still saw Lily from time to time. She didn't understand everything, but she knew enough. She called me Dad and ran into my arms every time she saw me. And I held her like I was holding onto the last piece of myself that Emily hadn't ruined. Saul disappeared, probably ashamed. Or maybe just smart enough to realize he'd never be accepted by the family he secretly fathered. The kids wanted nothing to do with him. Not after everything. A few months later, I stood in the same backyard where I had once dropped that microphone. The flower wall was gone. The fake smiles, the filtered friends, gone. It was just me and the kids. A small grill, some cheap burgers, a cooler full of soda. Jacob laughed so hard at one of Noah's jokes that he dropped his plate. Emma was showing Lily how to blow bubbles with chewing gum. I was flipping burgers, wearing an apron that said, "Real Dad. DNA optional." They got it for me. As a joke, I smiled more in that hour than I had in the last 10 years of marriage. Later that night, after the kids had gone inside, I sat alone under the porch light and thought about everything. The lies, the betrayal, the years I'd never get back. And then I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I was free. Emily had destroyed the life I thought I had. But in doing so, she gave me the one I deserved. One built on truth, not illusion. One where I could finally breathe. People always say betrayal changes you. They're right. It made me smarter, sharper, harder where I needed to be. But somehow, it also made me softer with the right people. More protective, more present, more real. If someone's reading this, some guy sitting in his car outside a motel with his life falling apart, here's what I'll tell you. Don't let the lies break you. Let them wake you. Don't chase the version of her you fell in love with. That woman's gone. Or maybe she never existed at all. Let the truth hurt. Then let it build you into something stronger. Because one day, you'll be flipping burgers in your backyard with the people who truly love you. And you'll realize, the worst day of your life was actually the beginning of your best one. There she was, standing in the mirror, zipping up that tight red dress, the same one I bought her for our 10th anniversary. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, pretending to scroll through my phone. She didn't even notice me. No, she was too busy practicing her fake smile, the one she reserved for other men these days. Big night? I asked, voice calm, like the storm wasn't already building inside me. Jessica laughed, tucking a stray curl behind her ear. Charity gala, remember? Gotta look perfect. Perfect. Yeah, perfect for Brandon Carter, her charity partner, the same guy I'd caught sending her those late-night work updates that somehow involved heart emojis and promises to keep her warm during lonely trips. But tonight wasn't just another gala night. No, tonight was her big day. Tonight, everything was set. See, 2 nights ago, after another one of her suspicious, late meetings, I'd gotten a call from an old buddy, Daniel. His voice was shaky. "Man, I didn't want to be the one to tell you," he said. "But you need to see this." He sent me a video. Jessica, my Jessica, grinding up against Brandon at some dive bar outside town. Laughing, whispering in his ear. His hands sliding exactly where they shouldn't. And then, they disappeared into the back. I watched it all. Every damn second. That was the moment the old me died. She called me a fool the next morning over breakfast, right to my face, still smelling like Brandon's cologne. I hadn't even confronted her yet. She just smirked, poured her coffee, and said, "You know, you're such a damn fool, Adam." It hit me like a sledgehammer. But it got worse. With that same cruel smirk, she dropped the real bomb. "By the way, those 3 kids you adore? Not yours. Never were." She said it so casually, like she was commenting on the weather. I stared at her, my whole world crumbling inside. Our sons, Tyler, Lucas, and baby Eli, my whole damn life. And she just shredded it in 2 sentences. I should have flipped the table. Should have screamed. Should have done something. But I didn't. I just sat there, nodding slowly, tasting blood in my mouth from biting down so hard. She thought she broke me. She thought wrong. I smiled. Because she didn't know I had plans. Her big day, the gala night where she and Brandon were planning to announce their partnership to the whole damn city. It was about to become her worst nightmare. "You look beautiful," I said now, pushing off the doorframe. Jessica blinked, thrown off for a second. Then she smiled wide, fake as hell. "Ah, thank you, babe." "Babe." I almost laughed. She grabbed her clutch and turned towards the door, heels clicking like gunshots. I watched her leave, the smell of betrayal hanging in the air. Then I grabbed the small flash drive sitting on the kitchen counter, the one loaded with DNA results, videos, screenshots, and slipped it into my pocket. Tonight, the whole world would know what kind of woman Jessica Harper really was. And when I was done, she'd be left with nothing. Not even her precious Brandon. Because he had skeletons too, and tonight, I was dragging every one of them into the spotlight. But first, I poured myself a whiskey, neat, and sat back, letting the fire burn inside me. Calm. Focused. She called me a fool. She had no idea. The real fool was the one thinking she could play me and walk away clean. And tonight, was just the beginning. The gala was already buzzing when I walked in. Crystal chandeliers lit up the massive ballroom. Women in overpriced dresses, men in tuxedos they rented to impress people who didn't care about them. I moved through the crowd like a ghost, unnoticed, unbothered, just a smile on my face and revenge pumping through my veins. Jessica spotted me the moment I entered. Her eyes widened, just for a second, then she masked it with that sugary grin. She wasn't expecting me. She probably thought I'd be at home, crying into a bottle, wondering why my life had turned into a bad soap opera. Not tonight. She looked stunning, I'll admit it. That red dress wrapped around her curves like a second skin, her blonde hair spilling over her shoulders. Half the room was staring at her. Too bad they were about to learn the truth about their little starlet. I let her have her moment, watched her glide from person to person, laughing that fake little laugh, clutching Brandon's arm like a trophy she couldn't wait to parade around. Brandon. Tall, smug, dripping in money he didn't earn. Every time he touched her lower back, my fist clenched in my pockets. Every whisper into her ear made the rage swirl hotter in my gut. I wondered if he even knew about the kids, if he knew he wasn't just sleeping with another man's wife, but also raising another man's legacy with lies. I grabbed a champagne flute from a passing waiter, mostly for show. The real show was about to begin. Daniel texted. One word. Ready. I nodded once, almost invisible, and made my way toward the stage. The MC was already introducing Jessica and Brandon, hyping them up like they were royalty. And now, the people you've all been waiting for. Jessica Harper and Brandon Carter. The applause was deafening. People clapped, cheered, oblivious. Brandon walked up first, smug as hell, waving like he was campaigning for homecoming king. Jessica followed, radiant and fake, squeezing his hand for the cameras. Perfect. Because the projector behind them flickered to life. And then, the first video played. There was no mistaking it, Jessica and Brandon, tangled together in the dark corner of that dive bar. Her voice, drunk and giggling, clear as day, "You're so much better than my husband." Adam's just a paycheck with a pulse. The room froze. Jessica's face drained of color. Brandon spun around, staring at the massive screen like he could somehow make it disappear if he just glared hard enough. Whispers erupted, waves crashing across the crowd. And then, the second video. Jessica, sitting at our kitchen table, bragging to her friend over the phone. Honestly, I can't believe he thinks those brats are his. Brandon's the real dad. But hey, Adam pays for everything. Let him keep thinking he's king of the castle. Someone gasped loud enough to echo off the marble floors. Jessica dropped the microphone. It clattered against the stage. People started pulling out their phones, recording, snapping pictures, uploading to every social media platform they could. I took a slow sip of champagne, savoring the chaos. Jessica finally spotted me across the room, eyes wild, like a cornered animal. She stumbled down the stairs, pushing past people, knocking over a waiter, grabbing fistfuls of her dress. She made it to me, grabbed my jacket with both hands. "What the hell did you do?" she hissed. I smiled so wide it hurt. "Just leveling the playing field." "You ruined me," she screamed. "Funny. You ruined yourself," I said, brushing her hands off like she was dirt on my clothes. Security was already approaching, not for me. For her. This was a charity event, after all. They didn't want a scene. Too late for that. Brandon tried to slip away unnoticed. Coward. Typical. Daniel cut him off near the exit and handed him a thick envelope. DNA results. Proof he wasn't the father either. I didn't stay to watch Brandon's world collapse. I didn't need to. Jessica tried one last time, voice breaking, mascara running down her cheeks. "Adam, please. I can fix this." "Fix what?" I said, stepping back. "The kids you lied about? The years you stole? The nights you played house while crawling into someone else's bed?" Her mouth opened and closed, no words coming out. She looked small now. Pitiful, but not enough to deserve sympathy. I turned, handed my champagne glass to a stunned server, and walked out into the cold night. Behind me, the perfect world Jessica built on lies was burning. And it was only just getting started. I drove home with the windows down, letting the freezing air slice through me, keep me sharp. I wasn't drunk on revenge. I wasn't giddy with it. It was something else, colder, heavier. Like I was finally seeing everything clearly for the first time in years. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked the same as always. White picket fence, kids' bikes tossed on the lawn, porch lights still flickering like I kept meaning to fix it. A normal house. A lie wrapped in siding and shingles. I sat there for a minute, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles cracked. She was already here. Her car was in the driveway, parked crooked. She must have raced home after the gala blew up, probably hoping to somehow still spin this. Still charm her way out. Jessica was sitting on the front steps when I got out, heels in one hand, clutch in the other, hair a wild mess. She looked up at me, eyes red, cheeks smeared with makeup. She tried to smile. Adam, please. Let's just talk. Talk. Like talking could erase a decade of lies. I didn't say a word. Just walked past her, unlocked the door, stepped inside. She followed, barefoot, desperate, the click of her heels against the wooden floor sounding hollow. Look, I messed up, okay, she said, voice wobbling. But we can get past this. We can fix it. I turned around slowly, met her eyes. 3 kids, Jessica. 3 kids you let me believe were mine. She opened her mouth, then closed it. No excuses this time. Nothing she could say would touch that wound. You called me a fool, I said, voice low. Made a joke of me in front of everyone. I didn't mean it, she whispered. Bullshit, I snapped. You meant every damn word. She flinched like I hit her. Good. You know what hurts the most? I said, stepping closer. It's not that you cheated. It's not even that you lied about the kids. It's that you looked me in the eye every day, slept in my bed every night, let me love you, and you didn't give a damn. She started crying harder, ugly, hiccuping sobs that once would have gutted me. Now they just sounded fake. Performed. You don't understand, Adam, she cried. Brandon, it wasn't serious at first. It was just fun. It meant nothing. Fun? I repeated, laughing bitterly. So my whole life, our family, was what? A goddamn hobby. She reached for me. I stepped back. You think this is about Brandon? I asked. You think it's just him? She blinked, confused. I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen. A second later, a recording played, her voice, drunken and cruel, bragging to some girlfriends about how many other business trips she took. I mean, honestly, half the time I didn't even remember their names, her voice slurred through the speaker. But whatever, Adam was always too busy playing Daddy of the Year to notice. Jessica's knees buckled. She dropped the heels, covering her mouth with both hands. Yeah, I knew everything. I'd hired a PI months ago when the first cracks started showing. When she started coming home smelling like cologne that wasn't mine, claiming the gym was just intense tonight. Turns out the gym had a name. His name was Marcus. And then there was Kevin. And Derek. And who knows how many others. She wasn't just a cheater. She was a serial betrayer. A pathological liar who saw love as leverage, not loyalty. I watched her sink onto the floor, sobbing, a wreck of the woman she pretended to be. You're a monster, I said quietly. And I let you into my soul. She looked up at me, mascara rivers staining her cheeks. Adam, don't leave me. Please. I'll do anything. Anything. I repeated, voice flat. She nodded frantically, like a desperate child. I smiled then, a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Good, I said. Because you're about to lose everything. Then I turned, walked into the study, and pulled open the desk drawer where the divorce papers were already waiting. Signed. Dated. The only thing missing was her signature. And tonight, she was going to give it to me. One way or another. She didn't move when I came back with the papers. She just sat there on the floor, rocking slightly, arms wrapped around herself like that could somehow hold her world together. I dropped the folder in front of her. Sign it, I said. Jessica stared at the papers like they were written in another language. Her hands trembled. You can't just, she started, her voice cracking. I can, I interrupted, stepping closer. And I will. Her mouth twisted, her whole face hardening. The tears vanished as quickly as they came. There she was, the real Jessica. Cold. Calculating. The woman who could look a man dead in the eye while she let another one climb into her bed. You're nothing without me, she spat, standing up so fast she nearly fell over. You're a nobody, Adam. You needed me. I made you. I laughed, genuinely laughed. You made me? Sweetheart, you couldn't even make a cup of coffee without screwing it up. Her hand twitched like she wanted to slap me. I almost dared her to. Instead, she yanked the folder open and snatched the pen from my hand, scribbling her name so hard the ink bled through the paper. There, she hissed, tossing the pen at my chest. Happy now? I picked up the papers slowly, folding them with precision, sliding them into my jacket pocket. Ecstatic. She glared at me, hatred simmering under her skin. I could feel it like heat waves. You think you've won? She said, her voice a low growl. You think walking away makes you the good guy? I shrugged. I don't care what it makes me. I'm free. She laughed then, a harsh, bitter sound. You're free? Good luck, Adam. You're old news. No one's gonna want some sad, washed-up loser with 3 kids that aren't even his. I stepped closer, dropping my voice so only she could hear. I'm not the loser here, I said. You are. Because you just lost the only person who ever loved you without expecting something in return. Her face twisted. For a second, I thought she might cry again, but she just bit her lip until it turned white. And Jessica, I added, make sure you get a good lawyer. She frowned, confused. You're going to need one, I said, smiling thinly. Because I'm suing for full custody. The color drained from her face faster than a flipped switch. You can't, she shrieked. They're not even. They're my kids, I cut her off. I raised them. I loved them. I wiped their tears, taught them to ride bikes, sat through endless school plays. They're mine where it counts. She stumbled back like I'd hit her. And you, I said, stepping around her toward the door. You're just a woman they're going to remember as the reason their childhoods ended in courtrooms. I didn't wait for her response. I walked out, the door slamming behind me hard enough to rattle the windows. The cold air hit me like a punch, but I welcomed it. It burned the lies off my skin. The street was quiet. The world didn't care that a family had just exploded. Maybe that was the cruelest part. Life kept moving, even when yours fell apart. My phone buzzed. Daniel. You good? His text said. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed back. Better than good. I'm alive. I slipped the phone into my pocket and walked to my car. Behind me, Jessica screamed something into the night, a raw, ugly sound, but I didn't turn around. She had spent years disrespecting me, lying to my face, spitting on the life we built. Now she could choke on the ashes. And I wasn't done yet. I didn't go home right away. I couldn't. The walls of that house felt tainted now, soaked in memories that didn't mean anything anymore. So I drove. No destination, just the road unraveling ahead of me, cold air roaring through the open windows. My mind kept circling back to the kids. Tyler, Lucas, and little Eli. My boys. Not by blood. Jessica made sure I knew that. But in every other way that mattered. How the hell was I supposed to tell them? I didn't have an answer. At some point I ended up in front of Daniel's house. His porch light was on. He must have been waiting for me. I knocked once and he opened the door immediately, pulling me into a rough hug. You good, brother? He asked, voice low. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. We sat out back, beers in hand, staring at the dark yard. I told him everything, the gala, the confrontation, the divorce papers, the threat of the custody battle. You did the right thing, Daniel said after a while. But it's gonna get ugly. I know, I said. I'm ready. But deep down, a small part of me wasn't. How could you ever really be ready for a war against someone you once trusted with your whole soul? My phone buzzed again around midnight. I almost ignored it, assuming it was another desperate message from Jessica. But when I looked, my heart stopped. It was Tyler. Dad, are you okay? Mommy's acting weird. She said you left forever. I swallowed hard. My fingers hovered over the keyboard before I finally typed back. I'm okay, buddy. I'll come see you tomorrow. Get some sleep. 3 dots appeared, then vanished. Then came another text. We love you, Dad. I squeezed the phone so hard it creaked. They didn't know. They didn't know anything. And I wasn't about to tell them that the woman they called Mommy had torn everything apart. Not yet. Not until I had everything locked down. The next morning, I met with my lawyer, a shark in a suit named Martin Blake. He didn't ask stupid questions. Just nodded, scribbled notes, and promised to burn Jessica alive in court if she tried to fight me. Adultery, fraud, parental alienation. We've got enough to bury her 6 feet under, he said with a smirk. You want full custody? We'll get it. It should have made me feel better. It didn't. I didn't want a war. I didn't want to destroy the mother of my kids. But Jessica had made her choices. And now, there were consequences. That afternoon, I went back to the house. Jessica wasn't there. Her car was gone, probably licking her wounds somewhere, trying to figure out how to spin this disaster into sympathy points. The boys were home, though. Tyler opened the door, his face lighting up when he saw me. Dad. He jumped into my arms and for a second, the world felt right again. Lucas and Eli followed, clinging to my legs, babbling about their day, about a new drawing Tyler made, about how Eli lost his toy car under the couch. I knelt down, hugging them tight. I missed you guys, I said, voice cracking. Are you mad at Mommy? Lucas asked quietly. I closed my eyes. Breathed deep. No, I said finally. I'm just sad. Grown-up stuff. But it's not your fault. You guys are the best thing that ever happened to me. They didn't understand, not fully. But they hugged me tighter anyway. Later, while they napped, I walked through the house, taking everything in. Every photo on the wall. Every stupid little decoration Jessica insisted on. Every tiny piece of a life that wasn't what it seemed. And that's when I found it. Tucked into the back of the closet. A shoebox. Inside, letters. Dozens of them. From Brandon. From Marcus. From other men whose names I didn't even recognize. Explicit letters. Promises. Memories of nights spent behind my back. Some dated years ago. Some so recent the ink was still smudged. She hadn't just cheated. She had lived an entirely separate life, layered right over ours like a second skin. I sat there, shoebox in my lap, feeling like a fool all over again. But not for long. I grabbed the box, walked outside, and dumped it into the trash can. Set it on fire without a second thought. Watched the paper blacken and curl and die. When the last ember faded, I went back inside. And for the first time in years, I felt clean. Tomorrow, the real battle would start. But tonight, I slept in my son's room, one arm around each of them, holding on to the only real thing Jessica hadn't been able to destroy. The first shot Jessica fired came the next morning. A knock at the door woke me up. I untangled myself carefully from the boys, making sure not to wake them, and headed downstairs. Through the peephole, I saw two men in suits. Not cops. Worse. Process servers. When I opened the door, the taller one handed me a thick envelope. "You've been served," he said flatly. I didn't even have to open it to know what it was. Jessica was suing for full custody. She wasn't just trying to save herself. She was trying to erase me. I tore the envelope open, skimming the papers. False accusations jumped off the page like vipers. Claims that I was emotionally abusive, that I neglected the kids, that I was unstable and unfit to parent. It was almost laughable if it wasn't so goddamn dirty. She wasn't fighting fair. She was swinging wild, trying to drown me in lies before I could stand up straight. I called Martin immediately. "She's playing dirty," I said. "Good," he replied coolly. "That means she's scared. We'll tear her apart." I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. But as I stood there, legal papers in hand, watching the morning sun creep over the rooftops, I realized something terrifying. Jessica didn't care if she ruined the kids to get back at me. She just wanted to win. The next few days were a blur of meetings, affidavits to counter her affidavits. Martin worked fast, gathering statements from teachers, neighbors, friends, anyone who could vouch for me. Meanwhile, Jessica went on a campaign of lies. She started showing up at the boys' school, dressed like she was auditioning for a Disney movie, pretending to be Mother of the Year. She planted stories with mutual friends, painting herself as the abandoned wife struggling to protect her children from a bitter, broken man. I heard about every word of it. I didn't react. Not yet. Instead, I focused on the boys. Breakfast together. Walks to the park. Bedtime stories where my voice cracked halfway through because I knew how close I was to losing them. Tyler picked up on it first. One night, he curled up next to me on the couch, clutching his tattered Spider-Man blanket. "Dad," he said softly, "are you going to go away?" I pulled him closer, kissing the top of his messy hair. "Never," I whispered. "Not if I can help it." The day of the temporary custody hearing arrived cold and gray. Jessica strutted into the courthouse like she owned the place. Dressed to kill, crocodile tears ready at the corners of her eyes. Her new lawyer, some slick punk half her age, followed behind her, carrying her lies in a leather briefcase. She didn't even look at me. She was too busy playing the victim for the cameras. Yes, cameras. She tipped off a local news outlet, hoping to paint herself as some poor mother fighting a cruel, vindictive ex-husband. When I saw the flash of a camera outside the courthouse, it hit me how far she was willing to go. But I wasn't playing her game. Inside, the judge listened to both sides. Jessica cried on cue, told stories about late nights alone with the kids while I was working too much or coming home angry. Martin dismantled her piece by piece, calmly presenting evidence, witnesses, timelines that shredded her fantasy world. And when he dropped the DNA results proving I wasn't the biological father, but had raised the boys every single day of their lives, I watched Jessica's facade crack. Just for a second. Just long enough. The judge didn't make a final ruling that day, but we walked out with shared custody, at least until the full trial. A win. A small one, but a win. Jessica stalked past me outside, shoving her sunglasses on. "This isn't over," she snarled under her breath. I smiled. "Good," I said. Because I'm just getting started. Her hand twitched like she wanted to slap me. Instead, she hissed something low and venomous. You think the kids will choose you? They'll hate you when I'm done. I didn't respond. I just watched her storm off, heels clacking against the concrete like gunshots. She was right about one thing. This wasn't over. Not even close. And the next shot was mine. The next hit came 3 nights later. It was late. The house was dark except for the soft blue glow of the TV, some cartoons still playing on mute. Tyler and Lucas had passed out on the couch, little Eli curled between them like a puppy. I was cleaning up their crayons and snack plates when I heard it, a car pulling up way too fast in front of the house. I looked through the window just in time to see Jessica stumbling out of the passenger seat, laughing with some guy I didn't recognize. His hands were all over her. She wore a dress that left almost nothing to the imagination, heels wobbling, hair wild. Drunk. Both of them. I watched, frozen, as she grabbed his face and kissed him right there on the front lawn, giggling like a damn teenager. The guy slapped her ass hard enough that the sound echoed, and she actually squealed, pushing him away playfully before staggering toward the door. I didn't move. I wanted to. God, I wanted to rip the door off its hinges, drag her off the lawn by her hair. But the boys were upstairs, sleeping peacefully. They didn't deserve to see that. The knock came hard and sloppy. I opened the door just a crack. Jessica leaned in, eyes glassy, breath reeking of alcohol and cheap perfume. Let me in, she slurred. You're not coming in like that, I said, voice low, controlled. She blinked, confused for a second, then her face twisted into a sneer. Who the hell do you think you are? She spat. You don't own me anymore. No, I said calmly. But the kids are sleeping, and they don't need to see their mother acting like a goddamn circus act. She laughed in my face. Oh, please. You think you're some hero? Some martyr? You're just a washed-up joke playing house with kids that aren't even yours. I felt the punch of her words, but I didn't show it. Behind her, the guy from the car leaned against the fence, smirking like he owned the place. Jessica turned around, waving at him. Come on, babe. Let's show this loser what a real man looks like. The guy laughed, swaggering toward the porch. I stepped out onto the stoop, pulling the door shut behind me. You set one foot inside, I said quietly, and I'll bury you. The guy hesitated. Maybe it was something in my face. Maybe it was the fact that I wasn't bluffing. Jessica's face twisted, ugly and mean. This is why I left you, she snarled. You're pathetic. You didn't leave me, I said. You betrayed yourself. She tried to push past me. I blocked her. Go home, Jessica, I said. Sleep it off. Or don't. I don't give a damn anymore. But you're not dragging your circus into my house. For a second, it looked like she might cry again. But she didn't. She spat at my feet and stumbled back to her new boyfriend, flipping me off without even looking. They roared off into the night, tires screeching. I stood there for a long time after they disappeared, the cold air biting through my shirt. Inside, Eli started crying softly. A nightmare. Maybe. Maybe he sensed the chaos leaking through the walls. I went back inside, locked the door, and sat down on the floor against it, head in my hands. It wasn't just about winning anymore. It wasn't about revenge. It was about saving those boys from her selfishness, her recklessness, her poison. I didn't care what it cost me. I would burn my whole life down before I let her take them. I just didn't know yet what she was planning next, and how low she was willing to go to destroy me. It happened a week later. I picked up the boys from school like always. Tyler was waving a permission slip in my face. Lucas was trying to explain some science project. Eli just wanted ice cream. Normal. Safe. For the first time in weeks, it felt almost peaceful. That's when the sheriff's cruiser pulled up behind my car. 2 deputies got out. One knocked on my window. The other hovered near his hip, where his holster sat. Adam Harper? The deputy asked. Yeah, I said, heart already sinking. We have a court order, he said. Emergency removal of minors. I blinked. What the hell are you talking about? He handed me a thick envelope. Another one. This one smelled like blood. Jessica had filed an emergency petition claiming I was mentally unstable and physically abusive. All lies. But lies screamed louder than truth in a courtroom when you had the right sob story. The deputy's face softened a little. Maybe he could see it. Maybe he knew. But it didn't matter. They had orders. I had to hand the boys over. Right there. On the street. In front of the school. Tyler clung to me, sobbing. Lucas kept asking what he did wrong. Little Eli screamed when they tried to pull him from my arms. I broke inside that day. Completely. Utterly. Jessica wasn't fighting for custody. She was fighting for destruction. The boys were loaded into the back of the cruiser, their little faces pressed against the window, crying for me, hands slapping the glass. I stood there, fist clenched, jaw locked, every muscle in my body screaming to tear the world apart. But I didn't. Because if I lost control, if I even flinched the wrong way, she would win. I watched them drive away, heart pounding so hard it blurred my vision. Then I got in my car. And I drove. Not home. Not to Daniel's. I drove to the one place Jessica never expected me to. Her mother's house. See, Jessica forgot something important in all her games. Her own mother hated her. Despised her for the way she turned out. I pulled up to the house, an old sagging place on the edge of town. Her mother, Gloria, opened the door before I even knocked. I was wondering when you'd come, she said, cigarette dangling from her lips. I told her everything. No sugarcoating. No polite lies. She listened in silence, then went inside and came back with a dusty old folder. Inside? Pictures. Statements. Proof. Proof Jessica had been lying about me for years. Proof she had set me up long before the divorce. Proof she had been forging signatures, hiding money, and worse, neglecting the kids when she thought no one was watching. I took the folder, my hands shaking. This enough? I asked. Gloria smiled grimly. It's enough to bury her alive. It was over by the end of the week. Martin dropped the evidence on the court like a bomb. Jessica's emergency petition was thrown out. The judge ripped into her so hard she couldn't even look up from the table. She lost custody permanently. Supervised visits only. No overnight stays. No unsupervised time. She screamed in the courtroom when the gavel fell. Screamed like a feral animal. Had to be dragged out by bailiffs. The boys came home the next day. Tyler wouldn't let go of my neck for an hour. Lucas made me promise 1,000 times that I wasn't going anywhere. Eli just kept climbing into my lap and falling asleep. The house felt different now. Lighter. Real. Jessica disappeared after that. Rumor had it she tried to shack up with some guy in another state, but no one really cared. She was a ghost now. And me? I rebuilt everything she tried to destroy. Piece by piece. Brick by brick. I raised my boys with honesty, loyalty, and love. Real love. Not that broken, selfish thing Jessica had tried to pass off as love. And every now and then, when the nights got too quiet, I thought about her last words to me. You're a fool. Maybe I was. Maybe believing in people was foolish. But if loving my kids, fighting for them, protecting them, if that made me a fool, then I'd be a fool 1,000 times over. Because some things were worth it. Even when they broke you. Especially then.